Welcome to Charter California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance. Bob Bruesch is back. He is president of the Garvey School District, which is a K-8 district in the Rosemead area, essentially, Greater Rosemead. I want to speak with you about a decision that came down recently. It's known as the Vergara decision. I've spoken about it on the program before. I think it's fair to say that this decision really sent shockwaves through the education community, and it focused on teachers and the hiring and firing of teachers. I want to get a sense from you, both as a former teacher and now as a school board member, whether the Vergara decision speaks to a problem that is real and legitimate.
Vergara puts the issue of teacher tenure and what to do about quality in teaching right on the forefront.
Oh,
and
yes,
I'm glad
it does.
Because we have needed to go and look at how we evaluate our teaching staff for a long time.
And let's talk about some specifics, because there's the issue of tenure, but then there's the issue of dismissal. I mean, they're all kind of tied up into one big bow, but on the issue of dismissal, for example, let's just talk about a layoff type of situation where we're not dealing at all with bad actors, either criminal or just ineffectiveness. In a layoff situation, under California law today, the only issue that the district can look at is last in, first out. The youngest teachers, if there's a layoff situation, they're gone. Period. Period. End of conversation. The court held LIFO, it's called LIFO, unconstitutional. What do you think of that, sir?
Well, I would have been very against it because I was one of the first in. I taught for 40 years. Really, what we're looking at is, in addition to looking at the quality of teaching, we've also got to remember that we're in a country where due process is important.
And I think that's very fair, because in a lot of ways, I've asked, is Vergara a distraction? I mean, is the reason why we have underperforming schools to the extent we do teacher tenure, or is it poverty? Is it de facto segregation? Is it funding? I mean, it's easy to point to those, teachers who the LA Times is reporting make almost $90,000 a year.
Okay, first of all, the LA Times is correct in total payment. In other words, it's not just salary, it's fringe, and fringe is always about 25% or more. One of the things that society in America has to do is look at the teaching profession. I say profession because it is a profession. And we've got to understand that when I started at $12,000 a year, the teaching is completely different nowadays. There are more responsibilities. There are more things that a teacher has to do.
And I don't begrudge you, and I don't think most people begrudge you a fair salary. I mean, in a lot of ways, I could easily argue teachers should be at the highest pay scale.
I think so too.
But think about it. I mean, they are teaching our future leaders. They are teaching our future business people, our future military leaders. I mean, we need teachers. So, but the problem, sir, if I may say, is it's the optics of it all. It's that you have a headline that says that California teachers, actually it's almost $85,000 a year. You have headlines of, and I've said this on the program before, please forgive me, a teacher at Miramonte who serves semen on a spoon to his students, and he gets a 25-year sentence and a $40,000 payout from the district because they couldn't fire him. I mean, so the optics of this are really troubling.
When you separate these anomalies, which are in the press all the time, and you look at teaching as a profession, we really haven't gone back and looked at what it means to be in the classroom, because what it means to be in the classroom nowadays is vastly different from when teacher evaluation programs started up 30 years ago.
What's so interesting about what you just said is the notion of the anomaly. The defendants in the Vergara decision were relying on the fact that really poor teachers are an anomaly. Maybe 1% to 3% of teachers are ineffective. Forget the evildoers. The court held specifically that those anomalies were enough to make the teacher tenure system unconstitutional. Because if you go 1% to 3%, that could be 8,000 teachers.
we go back again to the idea of a teacher evaluation and teacher training. In any type of job, when you have a weak employee, you give them a pathway to gain those skills that they need in order to become better employees. On paper, that's what teachers are supposed to be doing, that get bad evaluations. We need to look at how they're being evaluated. What are the skills they're being evaluated on? What are we expecting from them? What we need to do is actually go back and start from the beginning. How are teachers trained? How are teachers evaluated? When they're evaluated with a long list of things that they need to improve on, how are they given the chance to improve on those weaknesses that they have? We need to find out what the modern teacher is doing in the classroom. In the old days, a principal could walk in and the kids were all in rows and everybody was listening to the teacher. Nowadays, you'd walk in a class and the kids are doing 100 different things.
Right.
Is that necessarily wrong? No.
Well, when you look at teacher evaluations, there has been a bit of a move to include standardized test scores as part of the evaluation. There's been some reticence about including those scores, and even I would say that, teachers given students, why should he or she be graded upon the lot of students that they're given? I guess the theory is that you look at trends as opposed to specific students. But now this past year, for example, we had the field test and no reported test scores.
And let me tell you, there's what parents and public have to remember is that the new standards and the new testing, the Common Core standards and the testing, are more in line with what educators believe is the essence of the change we have to go through in education. That is, don't teach kids how to memorize facts. Teach kids how to think. And the only way they can test that is by using technology, a computerized type of a testing system.
Adaptive.
Completely new. Parents still don't understand it. Teachers haven't worked with it before. It would be unfair the first time or even the second time around to say, okay, these are the failures.
And I agree, and I think most people would agree. But here's the challenge. The challenge becomes for advocates of teachers that you have a system whereby tenure is given after 16 months. There is no profession in the world where you get lifetime tenure after 16 months. And again, I'm not trying to bash teachers, but it's just the optics of the situation are very challenging. I mean, you have
appearances.
Yeah, and even you have told me, a teacher of 40 years, that there are cases that you are aware, as a school board member, where just teachers ineffective, and couldn't get rid of them.
Very interesting. I once did a survey. I was doing it because I was teaching a advanced class in teaching for a master's degree.
Right.
And I did a survey, and I had my students do a survey.
Please.
Very simply, put on a piece of paper the name of the best teacher at the school and the worst. The best teacher was all over the place, but the worst
was
teacher,
always the same.
Everybody knew who that was. So their own peers know when you have a poor teacher.
And yet, right now, it's very difficult to terminate an ineffective teacher. Legislation was passed that allows termination for evil acts, as we described the Miramonte situation.
And evil acts don't belong in society.
But it took Vergara to get that legislation passed. That was just passed.
Well, but the thing I'm saying is, until society, until the American public understands what must be done to train the 21st century child. It isn't the 20th century child.
Will you come back and talk more about it?
I will.
He is Bob Bruesch. I'm Brad Pomerance. It's California Edition.